and welcome to Enhancing Family Engagement through MTSS. It's not just one more thing, it's Check and Connect. My name is Sheila Ward. I am one of 2 State Personnel Development Grant Check and Connect facilitators, and I have the pleasure of working with school districts in the central to southern part of the state. I am super excited to be here with you because we will be talking about 2 of my favorite subjects. First, Check and Connect, and also the importance and value of family engagement. So quickly, before I ask my co-presenter to introduce herself, I'd like to just share a brief story. I have always been taught, or had always been taught, that partnering with families was such an important first step in starting off the school year. And although intimidating at first, I quickly learned that my students would have a better and more successful outcomes with their families if I established that positive relationship at the beginning of the school year with them. And I got to say, it was quite interesting, actually, because many of the families that I worked with, they were taken aback when I first sent my intro letter prior to school starting, or actually called them on the phone just to kind of talk to them how things are going, what we plan on doing, that I want to partner with them in their child's education. And what they explained to me was, many of them that had never happened before. They had never received that invitation. And it just opened the door to just some incredible relationships and, again, much student success. So we will be talking about those kinds of things today. And now I'm going to let my colleague Sonia introduce herself.
Thank you, Sheila. So hello, everyone. My name is Sonia Iorio, and I'm the Check and Connect facilitator serving under the Florida State Personal Development Grant, just like Sheila, but I support District Central North Florida. So just a little background on me and why this topic is so important to the work that I do. I was actually raised by my grandmother, who really understood the value of education and worked truly tirelessly to ensure that my sisters and I had access to the same resources and rigorous coursework as my peers. And I contribute that to most of the success that I've seen in my life. And so if it wasn't for her advocacy and being so involved, I might not have gone to college and then later on got my master's degree in counseling. And then I also think about how oftentimes she was more so fighting the school system for equal treatment instead of kind of working collaboratively with the schools that I attended. And I think about, just those different outcomes that may have resulted if they were both working in partnership together. Perhaps my success would have propelled even further. So I really do know firsthand how important this work is, not only for each and every one of the students we serve, but really those long-term outcomes that it influences. So thank you all for being here and choosing this topic. That is so important to both Sheila and I.
Definitely. And thank you very much for going and putting in where you work and what your roles are in the district. It helps Sonia and I to be able to get a sense as far as who we have with us in the room. So thanks again for doing that. So for our session today, we do have 2 specific learning objectives. First is for you to learn about Check and Connect and how you can use it to streamline and also increase family engagement for your students who might fall in your tier 2 or tier 3. And the second is for you to learn some strategies and resources to enhance family engagement by aligning interventions and supports into your current MTSS structure. It's a lot to cover, so we're actually going to get started, and Sonia is going to take us away with the first part.
Thank you. And so because it's a lot of content, I'm going to try to go through this quickly, so please bear with us because we are going to kind of move fast. But before we get started, when you hear the term family involvement, what are some words that come to mind? So at this time, we're going to ask you just to think about that, and feel free to place your thoughts in the chat box. So when you hear the term family involvement, what are some words that come to mind?
Communication.
Good.
Conversations, visits to school, volunteering, support system, teamwork, being available, attending meetings, attendance to IEP meetings, communication, support, encouragement, one team equals one goal.
Very nice. So how about for family engagement? Do different words happen to come to mind when you hear family engagement versus family involvement?
We've got reachable. I don't know if that was for the first one. Yes, thank you, Pam. Parent involved, reachable to engage, active participant and support, teamwork, having input. Forced versus willing participant, love it.
Yeah, all very good. So on your screen, you are going to see two different definitions. One's for family involvement and one is for family engagement. So when we think about family involvement, this includes things like participation in activities and families taking advantage of the opportunities at their child's school. Like you guys said, attending meetings or special events. This could also include exchanging information and offering advice or recommendations. Whereas family engagement includes that cooperation, coordination, and collaboration between the school or district and family to enhance students' learning opportunities, educational progress, and success in school. So it is that two-way, right, communication that you guys were talking about in the chat. So most MTSS structures involve some type of family involvement, and it's typically at that tier 1 level. So in this session, we're going to focus on enhancing efforts to involve families by adding another layer of supports through this definition of family engagement in your tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. So now I want you to kind of think about your MTSS structure and what programs you are already implementing. How would you rate how you involve families in this process? So 1 would be promoting family involvement, whereas 5 would be mostly kind of having that family engagement where you have these opportunities for collaboration and working with families as partners. So if you could just go ahead and place your rating in the chat box. So again, 1 is more kind of on the scale of family involvement that's going on, whereas a 5 would be family engagement based on those definitions. Okay, so we have a 2 in the chat box, which I think most programs do tend to be more towards that family involvement. Okay, 3s, we got some 3s coming in, good. So kind of in between. We're at a 1 or a 2. Okay. All right, very good. So like I said, the goal of this session is we're going to start looking at how to kind of move that from, kind of family involvement to also having those family engagement opportunities. And so, and specifically at that tier 2, tier 3 level. But for any of this work to have successful outcomes, staff, especially those that are implementing those programs and interventions, must hold the belief that all parents and families are equal and have value. And so we'll kind of talk about this a little bit later on in our session, but I just want you to know that this is a big part of the foundation to family engagement in the Check and Connect program, and something that Sheila and I both hold very dear to our hearts. So again, many MTSS frameworks use the early warning indicators and kind of facilitate programs based on those areas, right? We're looking at academics, behavior, and attendance. So for example, an MTSS team might incorporate a specialized curriculum or program to support students at risk for academics. They might facilitate PBIS or maybe restorative practices to address behavior, and might incorporate truancy protocols or programs to address attendance. And then we typically kind of have family engagement kind of off on its own on the side. And so it might be expressed as a need, but oftentimes it's not really embedded, at least not purposefully, into the interventions or programs that are being utilized at that tier 2, tier 3 level. So the goal would be to embed these things into your MTSS structure so that they are a structured part of the process. Okay, and so you can do this by looking at all of your programs and interventions and adding a family engagement component to them, or you can implement programs like Check and Connect that already have that family engagement piece embedded into its structure. So Sheila is now going to talk a little bit about Check and Connect and how it's embedded into that MTSS framework.
Thanks, Sonia. Well, actually, before we go into the intervention Check and Connect, we are going to provide some context as to how it aligns with the MTSS framework. And we know that you're all very well aware that MTSS provides the students interventions and supports that are based on students' individual needs. You have your 3 levels or tiers in the system, and depending on the needs, students would fall somewhere on this triangle. There are a number of mentoring programs out there that would fall in Tier 1. This could include advisory or homeroom programs or programs such as Take Stock in Children. These are great universal programs, and for the most part, in most of your population, this would most likely be enough. However, for those students who need more, this really is where Check and Connect is most beneficial, because Check and Connect is designed, as we've said, as that Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention. Those basic interventions of Check and Connect are designed for students who fall in Tier 2, and then the Tier 3 or intensive interventions are designed for students with more intensive needs. So in regards to basic and intensive interventions of Check and Connect, they go beyond they're not just designed for students. Check and Connect also includes a core component for family engagement that goes beyond, again, that Tier 1, that school-wide family engagement efforts, such as sending out newsletters or providing updates via social media, such as Facebook and Twitter, where that information kind of goes out to all families. When we're talking about Tier 2 or Tier 3 family engagement as it relates to Check and Connect and the work that mentors do with families, in Tier 2, they would communicate on a more regular basis, so once a month with families, and they would do so in a way that's preferred to the family, so through text message, through email, maybe phone call. They would check data, they would share data, they'd check in, they would highlight successes, which Chris talked about this morning was earlier this afternoon, that's so important as far as those successes and really that motivation behind those messages, and also provide relevant school information to families. In Tier 3, however, the communication might occur even more often, so weekly, if not even a few times a week. And the conversations include things such as addressing barriers, it might be addressing action plan steps, sharing academic, social, emotional, maybe behavioral struggles that the student is having, and would likely include some intensive problem solving with the family that could include identifying additional supports or resources, whether it be at the school or within the community. And also, not only for the student, what we've identified and noticed that a lot of the struggles that the student have come from home. So that mentor works with families as well to identify additional supports or resources that they might need in order to overcome or lessen those challenges that the student is having at school. So now let's talk about Check and Connect. So in education, we often, try not to reinvent the wheel and go with something that has already been done, or at least has proven to be successful. And of course, you could create your own, or you could implement programs that have already have that structure embedded in the model. And this is where Check and Connect comes in. So before I get started, how many of you have heard of the What Works Clearinghouse? If you can, go ahead and raise your hand, give a thumbs up, or maybe even use your Zoom feature there in the bottom to let us know. Got some people that are aware, not too many. Well, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, the What Works Clearinghouse is funded by the U.S. Department of Education, and it reviews research on different programs, products, practices, and policies in education, with a goal of providing educators with the information they need to make evidence-based decisions. We're always talking about that evidence-based practices, evidence-based decisions, and you have this entity out there that provides this information to you. And what we're really excited about to share when it comes to the What Works Clearinghouse is they did review dropout prevention research back in 2006 and 2015. And in both years, Check and Connect was found to be the only intervention that showed positive effects for students staying in school. So now let's talk a little bit as far as what this intervention is. So Check and Connect, it's a structured mentoring intervention that is individualized, it's personalized, and it's tailored to meet the needs of students showing signs of disengagement and therefore potentially at risk for dropping out. And because those interventions developed are based specifically to meet the needs of students, the process is not it's not scripted. Again, it's all based on those needs. They are, however, structured, allowing for flexibility within that structure to, again, meet those individual needs of students and also to adapt to local context or what is going on around the student. So what's going on at home, what's going on in the community, and what's going on in school. Check and Connect does focus on student engagement at school and learning, and it's done through relationship building and the systematic use of data. And the specific data that's addressed is attendance, behavior, and course performance data. And that data is used to develop interventions that are personalized, again, for meeting the needs of the student. So again, it's not just willy-nilly. All of the interventions that are developed are based on that data that is collected. And also different from other programs is Check and Connect focuses on school completion. It's not only getting students successfully across the stage of graduation. Those Check and Connect mentors work with students to build social, emotional, and academic competencies that will stay with them as they transition into adulthood. So let's now look at a little bit more into the structure of Check and Connect. So there are 4 non-negotiable core components of Check and Connect. And we say non-negotiable because without each, fidelity of implementation cannot be met. And what do we know about fidelity? It can't be met unless whatever that intervention is being implemented as it was designed. So what are those 4 core components? The first is mentor. A mentor works with students and families for 2 years. And it focuses on relationships that are based on mutual trust and open communication. They are nurtured through a long-term commitment, and the work done with students and families is focused on promoting a student's educational success. That is always in the forefront. Next, we have check. This component requires mentors to check and record that ABC data that schools already collect on students, and this is done on a weekly basis. So it's not something in additional. It might be focus that you have or some other school system that collects that data. That's what the mentors are reviewing and actually recording the data. The Connect component is the structured time that mentors spend with students, providing timely interventions that are based on that ABC data that is collected. And then during Connect, mentors work to reestablish and maintain students' connection to school and learning, and also to enhance students' social and academic competencies. So there's a lot of work that's done on building social skills and interpersonal skills and self-advocacy skills in that safe environment with the mentor. And the last, and this is really what we're talking about today, is family engagement. In this vital core component, mentors engage with families to strive to foster active engagement with parents, guardians in their students' education. And Check and Connect, that family-school relationship is viewed as a genuine collaboration. It's an engaged partnership, if you will, in which mentors learn from and with families, and families learn from and with mentors. A positive solution-oriented problem-solving approach is used in homeschool communication, whether between families and mentors or among families, the mentor, and school personnel.
Okay, so with Check and Connect, every student in the program, like Sheila was saying, receives those basic interventions. So we like to use the analogy that every student is receiving like 1 scoop of ice cream. So these basic interventions include providing that attendance, behavior, and course performance data, providing feedback on that data, discussing the importance of staying in school, problem solving, and connecting with the family. Then, based on that data that is collected and recorded weekly, if the student is at risk in any of those areas, they receive another layer of interventions, or what we would say like a second scoop of ice cream. So these intensive interventions can include a number of things involving family engagement. So just one example of an intensive intervention that could happen is, collaborating with the school and family on perhaps alternative busing options if that student is habitually missing first period due to having to take the city bus to school. And then on your screen, you'll also see a sample MTSS plan for behavior with programs and interventions that can be facilitated at the school site. So to embed family engagement into your plan, your team would want to look at what interventions or programs they are using and add family engagement pieces to that plan based on what's already being done and what's missing. So at that tier 1 level, it could look something like, something like that. There's supposed to be an animation, and I don't know where it went, but that's okay. So these intensive, sorry, I missed where I'm at. Okay, so So these are just examples of the basic family involvement practices that you typically see at that tier 1 level. So your team would also want to decide if they want to include family engagement efforts at tier 1. But again, what we're going to focus on this session is the family engagement at the tier 2 or tier 3. So it's already showing on your screen. But you might have a mixture of family involvement and family engagement at this level. And these are just a few examples to get you to start kind of thinking about what that would look like for you and your team. But as you can see, Check and Connect does include a number of family engagement practices in its program structure. So if you aren't using a structured program like Check and Connect, you and your team would just kind of want to brainstorm different family engagement supports that can be embedded into the programs or interventions that you're already using. Or you might also want to consider adding family engagement to your MTSS forms to kind of help streamline that process to ensure that there is a family engagement component happening for every child at that tier 2, tier 3 level. So to kind of help you start brainstorming this process, what we're going to do is an activity to think about what strategies you can employ to enhance that tier 1, tier 2, and 3 supports and family engagement. So what we would like for you to do is brainstorm, and we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and then you're going to brainstorm in your breakout room different examples for each of these categories for tier 1. So we're looking at homeschool communication strategies, home visits or face-to-face, kind of like that personal contact with families, responding to parental questions or concerns, and then encouraging home support for learning through problem solving. And then we're going to have you brainstorm tier 2 and 3, targeted intensive family support. So we'll give you about 7 minutes in your breakout rooms to discuss. And just note though that this presentation screen will go away once you enter that breakout room. Everyone's going to get a notification and you click to enter that breakout room, and then this screen is going to go away. So I'd suggest either taking a screenshot of this or just writing down those 4 categories now. And then as you're doing that, just before we send you off into your breakout rooms and you're coming up with those examples, I want you to think about the demographics at your school or district and what considerations you can employ to make your practices more equitable or for all. So think about those considerations as you're coming up with examples. So I think for this activity, Donna, are you gonna create the breakout rooms or would you like me to?
I can, it's fine, or either way.
Okay, I think I could do it pretty easily, so let me do that
Okay,
now.
go right ahead.
And if you don't have the screenshot capability, you can always use your cell phone and take a picture of it. That tends to work too.
All right, I opened the room, so you should see that. So we're going to give you about 6-7 minutes to do that now. So go ahead and join your room as soon as you see that invite. And if anyone is having trouble getting into their breakout room, let us know.
If you're not seeing the join button, you can always look at that breakout room button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you click on that, you should see it there. If for some reason it's gone away. So we still have lots of people in the main room. Is anyone having a challenge joining? Maybe Sonia, we can bring him back a little bit early, since not everyone has got people in their room with them.
They
Okay.
have 6 in room 1, 6 in room 2, 5 in room 3, 5 in room 4,
Okay.
and 4 in
Okay.
room 6.
Oh,
So
good.
they're not bad groups.
Okay, good. I can't see the group, so thank
Mhm.
you, Donna.
I can make you a co-host if you want.
Nope, that's perfectly fine. I was just concerned that there might have been people in there who only had like one or two collaborators.
Yeah, no, I think
Awesome.
they
Good, good,
have
good.
plenty. Except it's not showing me room 5, so.
Maybe there's no one.
Looks
in
like there's 4 people in room 5.
Okay, good. Sonia, we can also send a little message to them just before you bring them back that lets them know if you want to do that. Do you see where that is, or you've done that before?
Yes, I have. And
Okay.
typically when you close the room, it gives them like a 60-second countdown. So they'll have,
Okay,
they'll have
well,
that
that's
as well.
good.
Mhm.
Have you guys seen this thing called Jamboard?
Mhm.
That would be cool for something like this. Then everybody could write their stuff
Mhm.
into your document.
Yeah, that would be. That'll be on the plan for the next one, Donna.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, we weren't sure what features we were going to have access to, so we kept it somewhat simple.
Yeah, well, that's good. I just learned, I'm new to the Jamboard game, so.
And next time we will go live.
Next time we'll be
You won't
live.
worry
That's
about all this
right.
technology.
Right?
Yes, right.
We can have the big Post-it notes again, right? And have them right on there.
The carousel, the
Yeah,
carousel.
that's it.
You're my girl, Sonia. That's exactly what we're going to have, darling.
So they should be returning soon. Okay, so it looks like everyone should be back. And typically we like to have some time for share out, but because we're with you for just a short amount of time, we are going to move forward to the next thing. But I do hope that in your groups, you guys did brainstorm some good examples and things that you can bring back to your district in your school sites. So now for a moment, I want us to just dig a little deeper on how we can make our focus more equitable and inclusive for all of our families. So when you think about the students you serve, how would you describe the parent you would want for them? So I want you to just take a moment to silently think about your answer, or you can even write it down on a piece of paper and just think about who that person is or what that would look like. Is it someone who attends all the IEP meetings, someone who encourages them to study and complete homework and so forth? So now that you have that kind of image in your head, or if you've written it down on paper, I'm going to play a short clip from a series called Little Fires Everywhere. And so for reference, these two mothers in the screen are discussing for the first time their views on a child who was left at a fire station because her biological mother, BB, could not care for her. And now BB is trying to get her daughter back. So I'm going to play it and then we'll go from there. Give me a thumbs up if audio is good.
I'm sorry, why are you still here?
Can you hear it?
It's my
It's
job
too
to be
low.
here, unless you'd rather I not be. Did you think you were just gonna waltz into my house and pretend like nothing ever happened?
Elena.
I don't know that I can make it any louder. Just, is it low for everyone?
I can
It
hear
is?
it, Sonia. I think-
Okay. Because
might have
let
It's a
me,
little low, but you can read their closed captioning too.
okay, I'm going to take out my headphones and see if it's better this way.
About you, it's not about me, it's about a child who belongs with her mother. Exactly. Her mother is Linda. You and I are never gonna agree on this because we are very different people. I agree. You're manipulative and deceitful, with no sense of the rules or consequences, just like your friend BB. Okay, Elena. I'm sorry, but someone has to say this to you. You know what else you have in common with your friend? You're both terrible mothers. I mean, honestly, it's a miracle that Pearl is as lovely and wonderful as she is. It's not a miracle. She is mine, and I am a good mother. Oh, really? Because in my book, a good mother puts her daughter's needs before her own. A good mother makes good choices. And she doesn't drag a child from town to town, school to school. She doesn't smoke marijuana. Just leave her daughter to fend for herself. And she really doesn't leave a baby alone in the cold in front of a fire station. You didn't make good choices. You had good choices. Options that being rich and white and entitled gave you. Again, that's the difference between you and me. I would never make this about race. Elena, you made this about race when you stood out there in the street and begged me to be your maid. This is not working out. I think this is gonna be your last day. You think? Is this all just a plan with you and BB to worm your way into our lives to get to Mirabelle? Why did you even take this job? I took this job to protect my kid. From what? From you. I thought we were friends. White women always want to be friends with their maid. I was not your maid, Elena, and I was never your friend.
So I know that was pretty intense. And I love this series, and I saw someone else put in the chat box that they really loved it as well. And it's also a book, but it targets classism, racism, and motherhood. And honestly, if we had time, we could probably have a day-long discussion just on this clip alone. But for time purposes, I just want to quickly point out one important takeaway from this particular scene. So how we judge our parents and kind of what expectations we hold for our families that we work with comes from our own experiences. And so just like we do with our students, it's important to understand our families at that individual level in order to build true partnership. And, you know, just because someone's not showing up to open house or returning our calls, it doesn't mean that they're not giving their child everything that they need. Or what they believe is best for their child. So we have to watch out kind of for our own thinking based on our own life experiences, and thinking also as ourselves kind of as a savior who's trying to fix a family. What we really need to focus on is what they bring to the table and leverage what matters to them, not necessarily what matters to us, and work on building relationships through those common goals. So we really do have to kind of throw away the idea of what good parenting is and work with each family, again, individually, to create the right environment for that child and family to truly foster trust and partnership. So how we create an environment where we promote awareness and inclusion, how do we do that? So the first thing that I want to do is bring it back to how we open this session, remembering just that none of that work is really possible if the ones who are doing that work don't hold the belief that all parents and families are equal and have value, because that really has to be the foundation of the work that we do. specifically to promote awareness and inclusion. And so I'm going to go through this super fast just because of time, but just a couple of things to think about that can be changed at the individual level to promote awareness and inclusion. So the first thing, it might sound a bit elementary, but starting with building rapport with families really does go a long way before contacting them, because we want something from them or we need something from them. So Check and Connect is a successful program because this is embedded in the structure of how mentors interact with families. Partnership and trust must be established before that problem solving. And then the next thing to consider would be working on, how to appear authentic while remaining professional. So we tend to use, that educator jargon to appear professional, which can create barriers to building partnerships with our families, especially if we're coming across kind of as an expert who's speaking at them or to them and not really with them. And so how to be authentic but still remain, kind of valued as that professional is a skill and balance that to me is worth practicing if you truly really want to get that family engagement. And then routine reflection and bias checks just create a way to check in and reflect on your own biases and what might be limiting you from making connections with families. So one way to reflect is just to talk to coworkers who would be open and willing to provide feedback, specifically if the concern is related to maybe a particular race or gender or sexual identity that you might not have a personal or professional experience with. And then lastly, take a survey of the space that you interact with your families in. Is it an inviting space? Are you sitting with the family or are you behind a desk? What pictures, what things are on the walls? Are there children's toys or other items to encourage families to bring younger children if they don't have childcare, and so forth? What is your space saying to the families that you serve, and what can you change to make it different if it doesn't reflect an open and inclusive space? And then just some things that you can do at the systemic level, if you do have that ability to create change at that level, would be looking at programs you're currently employing and evaluating their inclusiveness. If they're not inclusive, what can you change about them, or what can you bring to the table to make them more, inclusive or equitable for all of your families? Transparency would involve just being transparent with your families and asking for feedback. If something isn't going well, talk to your families and the community about it and problem solve together. It's okay to admit fault. I feel like we always feel like we have to have this kind of status about us, but it's okay to admit that fault and work on solutions than, continuing failed practices, because we want what's best for our children and our families. Accessibility would include looking at your practices and evaluating how accessible you are to parents. Have you ever called the school or district just to even see what that process is like for a family? How are inquiries managed? Do you have a policy on time frame for return calls, scheduling appointments? If you have certain expectations for families, do they actually know what they are? And do we create efficient or effective ways for them to meet those expectations? For example, we might expect our families to be involved in homework completion, but what does that actually look like? What is the actual expectation for our families? And do we have things to support them through those expectations or through meeting those expectations? And then just another thing to consider is that many families might not be involved in school, but they are involved in the community. And so work with the community to figure out what is important to your families and meet them where they're at. So Check and Connect encourages mentors to meet families outside of the school setting. So think about really like where your families are, churches, community centers, parks, and so forth, and bring the community partners to the school as well that your families would support, like nonprofits, food banks, clothing drives. Really let the community lead what that looks like for your school site or for your district. And then lastly, choice and voice. It's not only included in our families, but also includes the staff that's actually doing the work. So what opportunities do we give our staff to create opportunity for family engagement? not only might they have great ideas, but people, as we know, are more willing and typically are more successful when they are in control of the work that they do, right? No one likes to be voluntold to do something. And so I have a really good friend of mine who's a special education teacher, and she started an after-school ESOL class for her students' families. And at the end of the group, they had this big potluck, and all the families were so excited to finally be able to give something back to her. And they did that through food, and they were really excited for her to try the foods from their native countries. And it was a really meaningful experience for her. And she still talks about it as being one of the best experiences that she had in her career as an educator. So think about, how you can employ like the changers and the leaders, at your school sites or, at your district to spearhead this work, and then how to make it truly a priority through supporting the time and the effort that it really does take to create these opportunities for engagement.
All right, so Sonia, we only have 2 minutes left. So folks, this is a tool that Sonia and I worked on to provide you. It has an opportunity for you to kind of reflect on family engagement as it is in your school district or in your schools. Obviously, we don't have time to do it now. So it is in one of the resources that we have uploaded for you. So Sonia, go ahead on to the next slide, if you would, please. So we created this PDF and it was uploaded to all of the, as well as the PowerPoint to whatever the platform is and how you get the materials. And all of these things have links to them. So you'll be able to see that there's a number of modules, and they're free, that are available from nationwide kinds of institutions. So Check and Connect National has some things. Harvard University Iris Center. I don't know if anyone has seen these, but they're absolutely phenomenal modules. And it's something that you can look at either from a district perspective or school leadership, or even if you have individuals who are working with families who might need some additional coaxing or coaching, I should say, not coaxing, coaching. These are all available to them. So Rita Pearson is someone who we often reference as far as in our Check and Connect, excuse me, mentor training. She has an amazing video on building relationships with families. The YouTube link is there. And again, it's embedded in the resource document that we have. We strongly suggest that you take a listen to that because it's very powerful. Again, we have some things that we have created. One is that reflection tool that Sonia just had up. We also have a family engagement communication plan that has been used with our mentors as well to kind of help think about things that they can use from the beginning of the school year to plan their communication with their families. So the last thing that we want to share, and I know we're out of time now, is just to let you know that Sonia and I are available if you have questions. Our contact information is there. It's also on that resource document, and we will stay on for questions. Again, I apologize that we ran so we didn't have a lot of time for questions, but we'll stay on if you have questions.
Are there any questions of our attendees? This is a wonderful presentation. You covered a lot of ground in a short window of time. And I just want to thank you on behalf of Visions and our attendees for this session, Sheila and Sonia. That relationship building with families is essential. And I'm so happy you gave various ways and examples of what that might look like, as well as, and I read very quickly, but didn't get through the entire document. I'm going to go back and revisit it, is that guided reflection tool. Mm-hmm. That is something I think that we all can, even if we think we have the best family engagement and all of our kids' families are engaged, I'm sure we have families that are not. So, we start with our administration and work from there, but that tool looked awesome. So I'm very much interested in looking at that more closely. Great.
Well, if you have questions, let us know. We're here for you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Very good. Have a great day. Thank you again for your service.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Rudy.
Bye, ladies. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you, Donna.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.